Hi guys, welcome to episode number 7 of the Light Leadership Diaries. We're in for a fantastic session today. We've got a phenomenal panel of guests that have done some exciting work in different organizations with different backgrounds. So make sure that you get a pen, your paper, your iPad, whatever it is you want to use to document. Sit back, take in as much as you can. I can assure you that today you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and this is going to be fantastic in your leadership journey.
Let me take this time to shine my light, shine the light, shine the light.
We talk about being fired, passed on by promotions,
Yep.
low lives, in low lights in our career, in our journeys. Wanda, I'm sure you've had some lows in your journey.
Yeah, no, they definitely have been a few. And I said earlier, I proved to myself as a kid that if I can work hard, I will see benefit. And part of my low lives were often where I felt I had worked hard, but people didn't see that benefit. And often, and I'm not trying to sort of stereotype, but I sometimes feel as women in the workplace, you want your work or your work to speak for itself,
Yep.
and you think that's enough. That's all that you can give. And those were those points in my careers where I felt I was overlooked for a promotion that I deserved, and it was given to a man just because he spoke louder or he was more assertive at the table. Even though I felt actually competence-wise, I was a hell of a lot better than this individual. So those were low lives in my career, and I would end up actually either leaving the team or leaving the organization. But now, the company that I'm in, I've told myself I'm not going anywhere. I will leave when I'm ready to leave.
Right.
And I'm still working hard. You still see the output. And now I'm talking about it. I'm talking about what my achievements are, what my team's achievements are. It's taken a while, but now I'm not about just we're going to put in the hard work and hope somebody will see the output. Now you are going to see it because I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm going to tell you often. So you learn from that. You learn from just being wallpaper to putting yourself out there. So that's kind of been the lesson that I've learned from my low lives is this being passed over because you were timid and too scared to speak about your own success, thinking that you've got a big head or something. Yeah.
I find that that's a cultural thing as well, especially for people of color.
Yeah.
You know that it's difficult, or rather not difficult, we choose not to because we come up from a home where, you let your work speak for itself.
Yes.
Versus you're out here, telling people what you're doing
Correct.
and why, you are good or why you are great or why you deserve certain things. So that experience for you has kind of shifted,
Oh yeah.
how you approach the workplace.
Oh yes. And I think like now in the role that I'm in, so he's already told you I work for Shell, and with all of my global counterparts who do similar roles to me in other markets. At first, when I started, I was quite timid. I wouldn't shine the South Africa flag. No ways. Now, if we are in a conference or a meeting in some country somewhere around the world, by the time I leave that conference, they will know about South Africa, and they will know about Wanda, and they will know about Wanda's team. Whereas probably the first couple of conferences, I was kind of scouting the room, staying in the background, trying to fit into what seemed like a very European type of environment. But now when I go there, I know it sounds so cliche, but that whole saying of, I come as one, but I'm with 10,000. I'm there with my ancestors. By the time I leave, you will know that Africa was there, South Africa was there, and Wanda was there. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Interesting.
And for you,
Good
KG?
luck.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on the point you just mentioned around whether we as people of color really actually show up or show ourselves in the best light. And one thing's for sure is I think we focus a lot on the performance piece.
Yeah.
We'll probably spend 100% of our time just head down working on performance.
Yeah.
And when you realize and you need to play this game, there's this thing called image there, and there's the equity part there. And when you play this game, this is where you really realize that you need to kind of like split it across. So for me, the issue has not really been about feeling I was passed on for promotion. It has really been about not being aggressive enough for what I actually wanted. Purely because you go through call it a 3 or 4 year journey. This is my plan. This is what I want to do. And give or take a few months here and there, I've managed to kind of like get there. The challenge for me was when I realized what other people managed to do, I could have actually been more pushy. I could have actually done this because there's no difference between myself and that person. Why didn't I actually stretch myself or outward to then actually try and get myself to the next level? So that's really the battle I've really gone through.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have so many lowlights. Yeah. But part of it, I mean, the lesson is always around really being vocal, really being one of the issues was around when a manager of mine basically so I thought I had the top rating, and I believed I had the top rating, and I had the proof that I had the top rating, but the manager I worked for couldn't articulate that, right? And so therefore when it came to calibration, he was told in the session that I coerced him to giving me the top rating. So then my rating was dropped one below. And that was heartbreaking, right? Because I really felt I should have gotten that rating. But the lesson there for me was around when now I'm a leader and I have people that I manage, I need to make sure that I fight for my people. And I put them in the best place for them to be ready for a role. So that's one piece that's important, but also get everybody else aligned to the fact that they are the ones who are at the top of the pile. So I talk about my people like to a point where sometimes my team members, all of my team, had higher ratings than I did. But I was fine with that because for me, that was what I wanted anyway. So that was a lesson in that low point of saying, okay, so when you go to calibration, make sure that your people, you are very well prepared, make sure that they are actually delivering, etc. And you can talk about the things that they've done so that, and never back down. So I have been known to really fight for my people in those kind of situations, because I don't want the latter to happen where they don't get what they deserve. But it's not to say that when you don't have a great manager, it doesn't mean that, then you should despair. But there's ways around it and you work around those things. So I spend a lot of time in mentoring people who don't have that opportunity of having someone to fight for them. And we then figure out how do you then still get yourself seen and heard so that you are considered for that promotion, you're considered for those bigger roles. But for me, that was a negative that actually became into a positive for people after me. Yeah.
Okay. Katla, you touched on personal branding.
Yeah.
And how, it's one thing to focus on performance, but it's also important to kind of spread, your activity, your energies in other, elements as well that will kind of round you off as a person, especially in the workplace. What are some of the things you could say to people about personal branding? How should they go about it? What are the things that they need to think about, consider, and most importantly do in order to help, elevate their image and their equity within an organization outside of performance?
Firstly, I think it is very important to, take people through the journey as to how you got to what you got to. Yeah, and you prepare for work. Sometimes the outcome isn't as planned. I tell you, I moved organizations, promised I was going to do great things, and in the first year I was under delivering. And you're thinking, these guys are going to fire me, right? And through time, what helped is just firstly explaining the problem, why the problem exists, and what you're doing about it.
Mhm.
And through time, then ensuring that you enable your management or whatever the case may be, your bosses, to at least be able to articulate your issues. Because the biggest issue, as Taban is saying, if people are not able to articulate your problem, when you are not in that table,
Mhm.
you're literally screwed.
Mm.
So just managing that piece for me, I thought was quite important, but also sharing some expectations with your manager as well as other peers around your manager's level, which is, it's not just through your manager that you're going to be successful. You know, other people need to know what you're doing, because for whatever reason you may not have the best manager,
Mhm.
and now your career is literally like hanging on the edge of one person. So at least if you've got a few sponsors within a specific level, that will also really help.
And how did you go about getting those sponsors?
Firstly, you know, it's one of those things that you gravitate towards. You know, you see, you know, a group of leaders within, a certain space, a couple of people speak, you're inspired by one or two people, and you literally just go and approach them and like, you know, I really, you know, liked what you said. I'd like to, you know, hear more of it on a one-to-one basis. So really go in there and asking for mentorship or sponsorship. I know some people say you never ask for sponsorship, but sometimes it's better to go yourself and say, you know what, I want you to be, you know, my voice when my manager fails.
I've definitely had that, and I only learned that later on in my career. In the early stages as a graduate, I don't know if I just didn't take life seriously or career seriously, but I never had a coach, I never had a mentor. But when you talk about what you're saying now, we call them get to know yous in the organization I work for. I've realized how powerful those are, because at times, as you say, when you're not in the room, you need other people who know you, who can speak of your work or speak of who you are. And as you're saying, literally, you just need to find the courage and hit somebody up and say, please, can I have a 30-minute connect with you, 30-minute coffee with you? I'd love to know more about what you said on this day, or I'd just like to know a little bit more about your job or your journey. And people will often surprise you and say yes. And when they do say yes, you know, then you start to cultivate those relationships and try and find sort of a little bit more regular connects. But look, this person isn't your line manager, but they need to know who you are, what you're up to, what's challenging you, and where you're winning, so that they know what you're good at, so that they can speak for you at those tables. Yeah. So having other people, not just your line manager, who can speak about you or of you, is very, very important as you build your personal brand and corporate. Yeah.
I think one of the things that, I mean, I know I personally still struggle with today is, after all that journey, just spending more time to package what you've done.
Yes.
Like, we are bad at packaging, right? You would find, I mean, you know, we're working for multinationals, you'd see amazing examples, you go through the details and you look like, I mean, we've been doing this, you know, like we've been doing this, what's going on here? You know, but what do? We just work, we finish, we move on.
Yeah.
It's almost like we need someone to help us after you finish doing something, just focus on packaging it and then sending that through.
Yeah. So definitely agree.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what Tabani said in the beginning about taking stock, because we're always not even chasing, but we're always delivering on what we're doing right now. And then once this project ends, we're on to the next project, versus reflecting and saying, okay, what made this project so successful? What did I do? What was my impact in this project? And how do I articulate that to somebody that has no idea, that was not involved in the project, doesn't know what the numbers, the share, whatever it was that the objectives were. And then even circulating it to the business, circulating it to your peers, circulating it to other people outside of the, you know, the space that you work in. And that's another way of, you know, driving personal branding. Because then people are like, hey, I just got this presentation from this, but I don't know who this person is. And as I go through, they're like, actually, it's quite interesting. I'd love to know a little bit more about, you know, what this person did. And then all of a sudden you'll get an email, you get a phone call, you'll get an invite, you know, just to unpack what you did. So, you know, I think sometimes we also have to, you know, be very deliberate and be the ones to actually drive our own personal brand as well. Now, as leaders, when people, you know, reach out to you and say, I'd like you to sponsor me, I'd like you to mentor me, I'd like you to, you know, in those meetings, you know, almost be that light for me. How do you select those people? How do you agree to doing it? Because I mean, if somebody is a poor performer, let's be honest, it's your name on the, it's also your reputation and your credibility. How do you go about that as a leader for somebody who's aspiring to be, a leader and grow?
I mean, firstly, for me, I'm always open to have a coffee conversation. And it is there where you really understand what the real problem is. So a lot of the time, especially linked to like poor performance, you'd realize that, people maybe potentially wanting to take shortcuts, thinking if I have sponsors, it, alleviates what I actually need to do from an overall performance standpoint. And half the time I would have like 3 or 4 coffee sessions with someone, and I'm sending them back to the same place where they need to go before I can help you. I'm like, I would like to help you, but these are the things I want to see, right? From an overall performance standpoint, have you done 1, 2, 3? And then we can make sure that we can obviously speak for you on the table.
Okay.
I think for me, often sort of people would come to me, so I haven't necessarily selected somebody, but I'd like to think I'm a very open person. I do have generally a bit of a open door policy. So I've had a lot of people come to me, and I think what the process I go through with all of them, especially at the beginning, is very similar to yours. I try and help put a mirror. I want you to self-assess because yes, eventually I can speak for you, I can sponsor you, but you need to understand sort of where your weaknesses and your strengths and be clear on what those are. And then let's create a bit of a performance improvement if there's an area that needs to be improved. And then once you've got that locked, let's play to your strengths. And I will help you to play to your strengths and remind you around that. But first and foremost, we've got to hold the mirror. Let's be truthful. Let's be honest. Like, what has been your part in either the success or the failure of certain things? And once you kind of accept some of your own truths, then I think we can work together. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're asking me, I mean, it's always my question. My first question every time with people is when they want to meet me is that, what do you want? It's always the first question. What do you want? Because they need to define the relationship. They need to define what they want to get out of the relationship. And the second piece is around, I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm not going to say things you want to hear. I'm going to say the thing that you need to hear. Some people hate me for it at the time, but a few weeks, few months later, they come back, and understand where I was coming from. I've learned to, on the how, to improve on the how. I say that I'm brutally honest, but it still gets, the message gets landed or delivered to the individuals. And so for me, that's always the most important thing. People need to be clear on what they want. And then we can decide for whether I can help you or not. Because my motto is, I may not be able to help you, but I definitely know someone who can. So in this instance, I may not be the one who can help you, but I definitely know someone who will be able to help you, and I can direct you to that person. So that's always the thing. I need to assess whether I can help you or not. And then I make the decision. And for you, how do you do it?
Yeah, I think for me it's always important, and I want to echo exactly what you just said, is if you know what you want, I can help you.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you don't know, and you just say, no, I want a mentor,
Yeah.
then that conversation and that relationship is going to be a very strange one.
Yeah.
Because it's important that you tell me what it is you need me to help you with, because you might be asking me for help in something that I'm actually poor at.
Yeah.
And you're basing all your energy and your expectations on me in this space. Whereas, to Tabane's point, I can lead you to someone who's fantastic at that.
Yeah.
Whereas my strengths lie in this space.
Yeah.
And if that's why you've come to me, then let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
And also it's important that as a mentee, you come prepared.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the work. You're doing the work.
Yeah.
We are sitting down, we're having you're directing the level of the conversation, where the conversation must go, and I'm just merely asking you a lot of questions to help fine-tune and to help guide you in those spaces. It's like a coach. I may have the answers, but how are you going to learn? Every time you ask me, what is 1 + 1? I say it's 2. There's no learning. Because it's saying, have you thought about, there's many ways to get to that answer.
Yeah.
Have you interrogated this? Have you tried this? have you done that? Because then that is how you're learning.
Yeah.
And as through that journey and that process, it empowers you.
Yeah.
So it's really vitally important for me that the person comes already knowing what the objective is, what do they want from this relationship,
Yeah.
and how can I help them?
Yeah.
You know, because then when they're clear, then I can then achieve on their objectives as well, and then it makes for a very solid relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some relationships also outgrow each other.
Of course.
You know, so there come a point in time as well where this person is at a space where they're like, Michael, actually,
I'm
thank
good.
you so much for what you've done. And they'll
Yeah.
go for somebody, you know, who can take them to the next level.
Yeah.
And as a mentor, it's important that you don't catch feelings about that either.
Exactly.
You don't catch feelings.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
It's about
About
them and their journey.
Yeah.
You know, that's happened to me many times.
Mm.
In the same breath, I've also had mentors who now were peers.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
now I need somebody else who can help elevate me to the next level.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know, so it's also important to also understand that as well in that journey.
And I think, I mean, in closing, you know, I don't know if you can just share, you know, some words that you'd like, you know, to leave the audience with before we close the session today.
Wow. Okay. I guess not to come up too cliched and all, but I really think. Let me go to what I believe in. Yeah. Firstly, from an overall preparation standpoint in everything that you do, once you're clear on the preparation, then being able to convey that message to, your stakeholders is going to help you quite a lot. What I have found through time, I mean, I used to be analysis paralysis for first 6 to 7 years of my career. And, the older I'm getting, the more I realize that, be clear where you want to go. Then the work you need to do to kind of get there is easier rather than having a very big, range in terms of, what you're looking to do. So that is really how I look at it today.
And for you, Wanda?
I think for me, I'll speak on leadership because that's probably been my most, I think, testing test at the moment. Moving into a space in my career where I'm managing or leading leaders and delivering through people, because it's quite a transition that you have to make because you're not in the day-to-day, as you say, in the whole
Correct.
analysis stuff. Now you're delivering through others, you can't disempower them, you can't get too involved, but you have to set direction. So where I'm at right now, I'm really learning this thing about leading with your head, your heart, and your hands. So you're leading with your head because you've got to set the intent, like where we're going. But then you can't then tell them how to do it because then now you're stepping into like a middle manager space. So
Correct.
you've got to let them figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
But then there are times where you've got to get your hands dirty when the situation calls and then your hands are in there.
Yeah.
But because you're working with people and people are such a complex being, there's some heart that's got to be in there. So I'm in that phase in my journey of learning to balance when to lead with head, heart, and hands. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think for me, it boils down to the same thing. It's people. As a leader, people will always be the heart, the pulse of an organization.
Yeah.
You can strip out, the assets, you can strip out the buildings, you can strip everything else, but people will always fundamentally be the reason why a business succeeds or it fails. And as leaders, we are there to lead, to guide, to coach, to mentor. At times, get your hands dirty, give strategy, give vision, be empathetic. So people I'd often get this question is, what kind of leader are you? What is your leadership style? And I said, I use all of them at some point. At my core, I'm a visionary leader, but there are times when I have to be, an autocratic leader. When decisions have to be made, I make the decision. There are times when I want to empower the team, and I'm an autocratic leader or a democratic leader. Guys, what do you think? So it's, and one of my biggest things is, we bend, we don't break as human beings. So it's always important to understand that no matter what the situation is, we bend. So the situation will come, and it's how do you adjust, because we need to be agile. How do you adjust to that situation to ensure that we're able to come out on the other side better, having grown, having learned from that experience. So that's what I'd say. And you?
What about you?
For me,
Yes, we want to hear from you.
it always starts with self-leadership, I think, for me. before you can lead other people, you got to be able to lead yourself. So we always talk about this: say what you mean and do what you say. You know, for me, and if you don't deliver, that's the foundation. If you don't deliver, there's no conversation to be had. You will never be considered for anything. You're basically ensuring that it doesn't. You may make it through quickly in the first stages by being strong at, let's say, the alignment piece and being able to talk about things, but there comes a point where your knowledge base and your preparation becomes a lot more important. And the issue that you have is that the higher you go at the start, the higher the stakes. So your ill preparedness could lead to someone losing their job, could lead to an entire department losing their jobs because you've made a decision that you were ill prepared for, without considering the consequences of it. So it's really important that there's that self-leadership where no one needs to know what you're doing, but you know that you're doing the right thing, really getting yourself better. And then you can build on the other aspects of it in terms of how you communicate, how you structure your arguments, how do you get the other mentors, etc. But at the core of it, as a starting point, deliver. That's the starting base for me. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Leadership Diaries, The Light, episode number 7. I think it's fair to say that you've learned a lot from these wonderful guests that we've had.
Yep.
In terms of leadership, in terms of personal branding, in terms of how do you get over certain challenges that you've had in your journey. It's been really a fantastic session, like all the other sessions that we've had.
Indeed.
So we're really looking forward to you tuning in next week for episode number 8, where we have some more exciting guests. But for now, we just want to leave you and say thank you for tuning in, and we really hope that today's session has been impactful and really helped you to grow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hi guys, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure that you go to the bottom of the screen and you subscribe. Tabani, after the subscribe, what must they do?
So click the bell notification so you get notification every time I upload a new episode.
And then once you've done that, if you really enjoy this, the feedback, make sure that you like at the bottom, share it with your family, your friends, your colleagues. And then lastly, Tabani?
Well, make sure that you drop your comments below on what you think of the episode, and also give us some views of what you'd like us to discuss in other episodes.
Ustaz of Ali.
Let me take this time